So thinking again about service recovery, I want to give you a couple of examples that we've come across and we've worked through. And unfortunately, they're actually current cases in progress, so I can't give you the details. But really, I need to go back and revisit kind of what is the gut feel that made it go wrong. Now, every ERP project is different. The software is different, the size, the duration, the cost, everything is different. But both of these started off with, again, something wasn't quite right. And I want to elaborate that. It's kind of like, there's always going to be a delay. There could be a bump. There's a change in requirements. There's an argument kind of like, is it a change request, miss requirement, that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm really talking about. But I'm trying to think of both these cases had some things that weren't quite right. They were kind of getting a story, right? There were some unexpected delays and there was some rework and they weren't getting the answer. So the senior management kind of said, you know what, this isn't quite right. They didn't know that it wasn't right, but again, I went back to that it was a gut feel. They were getting something from the project manager, they were getting deliverables, there were some unexplained delays. So I can't tell you this is the key, this is the trigger that makes something to start looking at project recovery, but again, wasn't quite right. Again, they couldn't put their thumb on it, but there were some delays. The testing was taking a little bit too long. The updates weren't coming through. Some staff members were taking some time off, unexpected kind of thing. So there was just something, again, I can't tell you what it is, but there was something different. So with these two cases, what actually happened is one went on to success partially and one didn't. So the first example was when it was actually municipality put a halt on a project. And it was the right thing to do because it was a delay. It was supposed to be delivered. It was a very simple thing. It didn't happen. So they just said, you know what, it stopped. And then the implementer came back and said, well, it's being unreasonable delay, but they had actually delivered them. Here's the X number of things that we need you to address, and they never did. So the client put squarely their expectations back onto the implementer, say, this is what we need you to address and understand. And so the implementer had no right to come back and say, well, you're unnecessarily delaying the project. We've got staff on call ready for this project. But in all fairness, the client was very clear in what they expected their customer to do. The second example was actually the implementer suggested changing the software in midstream, which is highly unusual. And they did a pause, but they didn't actually have someone do an evaluation. They did a pause, did an internal evaluation and said, okay, it's a family of software products, was more expensive, took more time, and it really wasn't what they needed. And it turns out that the implementer didn't have the staff or the experience with that initial software selection. So the client did the right thing and they did a pause, but they kind of missed the opportunity to have someone come in and advise them on what they should or shouldn't have done. They kind of did an internal evaluation and said, okay, we'll move forward. Well, subsequently it failed and it didn't work. So there's two examples. One, again, they're both in process, so I can't tell you what has happened and who the clients are and some specifics, but both involved a pause. It was the right thing to do, and in one case, they halted the project completely, and one they moved forward. Again, subsequently, both projects never completed, but again, a recovery, having to come in, do that evaluation, could have saved them a lot of money and time and effort on both sides.